Police department staff shortages could soon take a toll on your wallet. The new incentives the police department is offering to cover more dangerous shifts. And we asked the mayor if these shortages are impacting the Brooklyn Day mass shooting investigation. Then more than 5,000 cars stolen this year in Baltimore with only 94 arrests. What one national expert says is contributing to many cases going unsolved. 8 city juveniles accused in multiple crimes just this past weekend. The frustration from state's attorneys fighting to hold criminals accountable.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 4.
And we are following breaking news right now. U.S. Capitol Police are investigating a threat near the Senate office buildings. A press conference on the shooting just began. Let's listen in.
Actually heard shots, and certainly no victims. As we've gone through the building, no one has said that they've seen anything. The original lookout was for a heavy-set Hispanic male wearing body armor, but again, no one's actually. We get no other information, no confirmation of that. All right. So now all three Senate office buildings have been cleared, so I'll take any questions you all might have.
Chief, are you worried about tomorrow at all?
We're prepared for tomorrow. We've been working with our partners from our partner agencies here.
That's Thomas Manger, who's the Capitol Police Chief. By the way, he used to be the chief of the Montgomery County Police Department, basically saying they've swept through Marion, but they have not found an active shooter. They did have someone in the background that they were looking for. Chief Manger described him. You see our Atra El Nashar standing behind him, but they are still taking precautions at this hour.
And just to give you a little background, officers say they responded within minutes of getting a call saying there was a possible active shooting near the Senate office building. A shelter-in-place order was in effect inside the Senate buildings, and the public is being asked to stay away. Of course, we'll continue to update this story. A big day in Washington, D.C. tomorrow. Somebody asked the police chief about that. Former President Trump will be in town. He will be in court to face that new indictment against him.
An understaffed Baltimore City Police Department is taking drastic measures to stretch limited resources.
I think it's a desperate situation, no doubt about it. Crime doesn't stop because of a lack of the number of police officers on the police department, and I think the commissioner had to come up with something.
Good evening. I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Mary Bubala. Thanks for joining us. Today, a document uncovered by Fox 45 News reveals BPD is offering officers thousands of dollars to switch to understaffed shifts and districts.
They're also pulling detectives off their investigations to work patrols. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor joins us live from police headquarters with reaction. Rebecca?
Well, in the words of BPD's Deputy Chief of Patrols, desperate times call for desperate measures. Take a look. That message from him, including an internal memo obtained by Fox 45, revealing BPD is now offering patrol officers bonuses to switch to understaffed shifts and districts. In total, they're asking for 70 officers to make a move for between $2,000 to $5,000. And if not enough officers volunteer, in some cases, they'll still be forced to switch shifts. According to former FBI agent and legal expert Tyrone Powers, it's a sign Acting Commissioner Worley knows BPD's staffing crisis, which sits at more than 500 officers short, is reaching rock bottom.
The commissioner is recognizing that these are difficult times. We still have a crime issue. We have a homicide issue. We have a juvenile crime issue. And so he's having to be innovative and creative and also to make expenditures.
Now take a look at this. Speaking on behalf of BPD's rank and file police union leadership, sending a statement to Fox 45, reading in part, quote, "They are at a breaking point. Large pay increases and retention bonuses need to happen immediately or we will lose more of them." I asked BPD today if they would consider increasing salaries, but so far I have not heard back. Meanwhile, we've also learned that detectives are being pulled off of their investigations to work patrol shifts. The police union says that could have a big impact on the number of cases that BPD is able to close here moving forward.
Yeah, Rebecca, you would definitely think there's a correlation between those two if detectives are sent to patrols. So one high-profile case is the Brooklyn Homes mass shooting. What's the mayor saying about that, Rebecca?
Well, he's not saying much about it. In fact, he said he will not be giving us an update on that investigation. And you'll remember that incident took place a month ago now. But he said we won't be receiving an update on that investigation until an arrest is officially made. Take a listen.
I'm a Baltimorean, and I'm not going to talk about how close we are and who we're coming after out in the public. You'll know when we put the bracelets on them and we tell them.
30 people were shot, though, and a month has gone by. Does the public have no right to know why no arrests have been made in this case yet?
I think the public knows, and Baltimore knows Baltimore very well. We've already made one arrest, so let's not give out incorrect information.
No one has been arrested for the shooting, though.
So what we'll do continuously is that we have the best homicide and shooting detectives in the world.
Now, the arrest that the mayor is referencing is for a teen who was allegedly seen carrying a gun during that incident. However, his lawyer claims that it was a toy gun. Again, to be clear, though, that teen and no other suspects have been arrested for the actual shooting yet. Reporting live from BPD headquarters, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Rebecca, thank you. Well, Fox 45 News also pressing for answers from the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement and Catholic Charities about Safe Streets' response to the shootings. Safe Streets workers were at the Brooklyn Day block party and mediated a few conflicts. We still don't know why Safe Streets left without telling police about potential threats. Now, Fox 45 News has sent questions to Monzi and Catholic Charities, which runs the Safe Streets location, asking what a mediation entails, who oversees the documentation of conflicts, and what protocols are in place to ensure better communication among agencies about a potential threat. Fox 45 News also asked to see the form Safe Streets uses to review these mediations, but the mayor won't turn them over, saying the program's operations have to remain private. So we asked the mayor's office what information about that document is privileged. The mayor also won't answer questions about who Safe Streets employees are, saying they are not city employees and their identities have to be protected.
Fox 45 News is questioning the Housing Authority about why the agency wasn't aware of the massive block party. Mayor Scott has called it unacceptable. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost questioned the Housing Authority president last month.
How did HABC not know that this was taking place?
We've been asking that for the last 2.5 weeks. We just did not have the intel.
Janet Abrams says the tenant council used to run the event, but that hasn't been the case in recent years. The Housing Authority now has time limits on parties and a requirement to get permission before using electricity at events. Fox 45 News will push elected leaders for answers about the Brooklyn Day mass shooting. You can find all of our reporting at foxbaltimore.com.
Auto theft used to be one of those crimes that if you got caught stealing a car, you went to prison. Now the criminals know that they're going to have to get arrested 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 40, 100 times for auto theft before they will ever see the inside of a prison.
New data from Baltimore police shows car thefts in the city are not slowing down. 424 cars were stolen in Baltimore just over the last week. And year to date, more than 5,500 cars have been stolen citywide. But with cars being taken at this rate, what strain is that putting on police resources in a city that is also dealing with a high rate of violent crime? Fox 45's Amy Simpson joins us live as she investigates that for us. Amy?
Yeah, Mary, so having your car stolen has got to be pretty scary and a major inconvenience, right? But this is not a crime of violence, and I'm told it's a tough case to close, and in some cases, it's sometimes put on the back burner. Now, you just heard from her, but today I spoke to Sergeant Betsy Smith with the National Police Association, and she tells me this elevated rate of car thefts is happening in big cities across the U.S. But here in Baltimore, she points to a department that has a shortage of officers, and the officers that are on the job, she believes they're likely being pulled to more pressing problems.
So their detectives in Baltimore are short-staffed. Now, you take your remaining detective cadre, what are your priorities? Homicide, violent crime, sexual assault, things like that. Again, where does auto theft fall? It's felony, but it's on the lower end of felonies.
But with more than 5,500 cars stolen in Baltimore just this year alone, year to date, Baltimore police report just 94 arrests for auto theft, which leaves this law enforcement expert to question how investigators are supposed to keep up with this pace. Mary, Kai.
Amy, it just is hard to hear 94 arrests compared to more than 5,500 cars stolen this year. I got to ask what the clearance rate for auto theft cases are in Baltimore City. It can't be good.
Yeah, so over the last week, I've asked Baltimore police 4 separate times just how many of these auto theft investigations have been closed or resolved. But a week later, and BPD has been unable to answer that question. We're live in Baltimore. Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Car thefts aren't just an issue in Baltimore. Police say last night a group of kids from Baltimore were arrested for stealing cars in Anne Arundel County. Some Maryland prosecutors are calling for juveniles to be held accountable. Many say their hands are tied because of action taken by the Maryland General Assembly. Fox 45's Maxine Stryker has continuing coverage.
Tuesday night, 8 juveniles from Baltimore City are accused of committing crime in Anne Arundel County. Police say 3 juvenile females were arrested for an attempted carjacking, assaulting the victim before stealing her keys. 3 juvenile males were also arrested for car theft. Police say 2 more suspects were involved, but not charged due to their age.
They know that, nothing's really going to happen to them if they keep their crime in a certain limit of types of crimes.
The Juvenile Justice Reform Act limits those 13 and under to charges for crimes of violence and says a juvenile under 10 cannot be charged. The law also calls for 6 months probation for juveniles who commit adult misdemeanors and 1-year probation for juveniles who commit adult felonies.
I am concerned that in some instances the legislature got involved in redrafting fundamental principles of constitutional law.
Their limitations, 9 states attorneys across Maryland, including Montgomery County State's Attorney John McCarthy, tell us are making their jobs harder when it comes to holding young people accountable. McCarthy would like to see a list of things changed, including the complete prohibition on charging those 13 and under, the prohibition on detaining a juvenile for technical probation violations, capping probation at 6 months, and a prohibition on detaining a juvenile for misdemeanors.
They come in, we can't detain them, they're back in the community the next day. They get picked up for the second one, can't detain them. They're back in the community again the next day. They pick up a third, they're back in the community again the next day. That is frustrating to the community and frustrating to us because without the detention, we are, in many instances, we're really not getting the attention of the child.
As 2 Maryland legislative committees plan to look into accusations juvenile justice reform laws are contributing to the problem, we asked Mayor Brandon Scott if he thinks the laws need to change.
This system has to be built brand new because we know the old system, the adult system, doesn't work for young people, and we know what we have today doesn't work as well. We need to Maryland needs to lead in building a system that actually works and has that balance of accountability for one's actions and understanding how, especially before they get too far gone in the life, that we're actually able to correct young people's behavior and benefit them and their families.
Critics say action needs to be taken sooner rather than later, and talk must translate to results.
I think a lot of this hearing is designed to placate the public. It's going to give people the political security to say, look, I take this seriously. I want something done. But it's not going to create action as far as concrete legislative program because you still have to get some sort of program through the legislature, and then the governor has to sign off on it.
Maxine Stryker, Fox 45 News.
That brings us to our question of the day. Should juveniles who commit serious crimes be treated as adults in the judicial system? Go to foxbaltimore.com/vote and join the conversation.
$80,000 in trips, all on the taxpayer's dime. Fox 45 News looking into where money could have been saved and if the city is being responsible with your money.
Donald Trump's 3rd criminal indictment will play out in this D.C. courtroom, but what challenges are already mounting for the prosecution and the defense? I'm Scott Thuman with a look.
And here at Fox 45, we are your back-to-school headquarters, and about 26 days until Baltimore City, Baltimore County, and some other jurisdictions go back to school. About 34 days at Carroll County and 26 days at Queen Anne's and Talbot. 34 days till Caroline, Cecil, and Kent counties go back to school, but we've got plenty of summer weather to get through. I'm going to let you know how hot things are going to finally get once again by the weekend. It's in my Weather Authority forecast.
Here's a live look at Washington, D.C., where we, had an active shooter situation where police were at least investigating that, still investigating right now. And President Trump will soon enter a plea for new charges that he faces. In this indictment, Trump is accused of trying to overturn the 2020 presidential election.
So what are the legal challenges for his team and for prosecutors? Sinclair's chief political correspondent Scott Thuman joins us live tonight with the story from Washington, D.C. Scott.
Yeah, good evening to Mary and Kai. And there are plenty of those challenges that you just referenced on all fronts and for all parties involved, because there's so much at stake here. Of course, we're now just less than 24 hours from the former president appearing before a judge at the court here in Washington, D.C., although his attorney has made it a little less clear as to whether or not Donald Trump will be here in person or try to opt to have this done virtually. Nonetheless, there will be this continuation to the argument, that discussion about the debate over free speech, if that's what the former president engaged in, or if this is a matter of trying to undermine the electoral process. Just a block from where angry Trump supporters forced their way into the U.S. Capitol on January 6, former President Trump will face a judge accused of inciting the mob and assertions he did so while aware he'd lost the election, but insisted otherwise. Intentional lies, they say, but prosecutors will have to prove that. Trump's allies, who could also face indictment, say Trump had the right to voice his feelings.
You don't get to violate people's First Amendment rights, Smith, no matter who the hell you are. And this isn't the first time you've acted like an unethical lawyer. It should be the last.
The circumstances and timing of the charges, though, they argue are more egregious.
When a sitting president has his Justice Department authorize the indictment of the man running against him, it better be a slam dunk case. This does not sound to me like it meets that standard.
But prosecutors allege the case is strong and the evidence overwhelming, that they can prove Trump took criminal steps to try and overturn his election loss.
The Department of Justice has remained committed to ensuring accountability for those criminally responsible for what happened that day.
And they'll seek a speedy trial. But Trump's attorneys saying they'll need adequate time to prepare. And even then, the trial could last up to a year. Dershowitz telling us Trump's first step should be to request the trial be moved out of Washington, D.C., where residents overwhelmingly voted against him, and move it to Virginia. Others say if Trump were convicted, a potential 50-plus year sentence seems highly unlikely.
Any judge who sentences him is going to say, no matter what your politics are, a former president of the United States has given a lot to this country, whether you like it or not. That would lower any sentence that he would receive.
Yet this just one of 3 indictments and a possible 4th on the way as Trump's trials and legal fees continue to pile up. And remember, this is only one named defendant for this specific indictment, Donald Trump. There were 6 co-conspirators who were also mentioned, and it's believed that they've been identified by other media outlets as being everyone from Rudy Giuliani to Sidney Powell. So we're waiting to see when and if they also could be indicted. This case may be growing each week. Kai, Mary, back to you.
Scott, thank you. And as we understand that a former Capitol Police officer who responded to the January 6th Capitol attack says he's been waiting for several years for former President Trump's newest indictment.
There are friends of mine, colleagues, people that were there with me on January 6th that would have preferred charges that more associated Trump with the violence of that day. I get it, but at the same time, I think it's most important that you present charges in which Jack Smith feels that he can secure a conviction.
According to the Department of Justice, around 140 officers were assaulted during the Capitol riots, including 80 from the U.S. Capitol Police and 60 from the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department. For our full coverage on Donald Trump's most recent indictment and the latest developments in his legal battles, head to foxbaltimore.com.
All right, time to talk about our weather a little bit. A nice summer day out there. This morning, opened the door to the deck and it was a little cold.
How about that?
For me, at least. What was the low today, do you think?
Down in the low 60s.
Yeah.
Oh, so,
okay. So you're right.
A little bit of false fall coming our way. Well, it probably ends today. I think we're back to humidity again for the end of the week. Maybe some showers or storms too. So enjoy. That's why we got it, because things are changing. We're tracking the next weather maker. And we're also tracking Thursday showers, especially in the afternoon. There's not going to be a huge risk, but at least some spot showers and maybe a rumble. Turns unsettled for Friday. I think that's our best chance of rain over the next 7. Humidity is going to be coming back, and it also looks like more typical summertime heat is going to be in our forecast. Right now, mostly cloudy skies, a little bit of haze, actually. Still some of those Canadian wildfires, although they're primarily now getting under control, still spewing some of that smoke in the upper atmosphere. The breathing conditions are fine, though. 80 degrees. It's winds out of the east-northeast at 13. That is a cool and eventually becoming more moist direction for us, with the dew point nice and dry. That's our measure of moisture in the air at 54 degrees. In the background, you see our sky cam. This is actually our traffic cam that's superimposed. You get a picture of 695. This is the inner loop and the outer loop out in Towson, and it looks like traffic moving by okay, at least for this time of day standards. Now, notice the dew point trend. That's actually going to be a pretty important number the next several days. You're going to notice that change in feel, although temperatures aren't going to rise too much next couple of days. Today, dew points in the 50s. You see that's in the comfortable zone. That's our measure of moisture in the air, pretty low. But as we head into tomorrow, begins coming up, and then, we're approaching the miserable zone as we head through the end of the weekend into early next week. Right now, HG radar quiet, although we have signs of our next weather maker that are off to our north and west around Milwaukee all the way back to St. Louis. You see it's kind of splash and dash and smattered out there, so not going to be huge, big deluges coming our way, but the nice weather that we've been enjoying, kind of a consequence of this fair weather high pressure, this big blue H that's spinning off to our north and east. Well, that's going to give way to some of the showers and storms. At least we aren't going to get into the big heat wave that's south and west. Places in Texas, Louisiana have been suffering with days of triple-digit heat. Around the outside edges of that heat, though, there are some disturbances, and we get one of those again later Thursday on into Friday, and you see that increased chance of rain. Let's track it close up on the future scan overnight tonight into early tomorrow morning. Looks pretty quiet. By tomorrow morning at 9:15 a.m., temperatures back in the 60s with dry skies. But look, tomorrow afternoon, there are some of those spot showers, maybe a rumble trying to head in from the west. There's not a ton. Could see a spot shower as well Thursday night into Friday morning, and notice some of that green persisting from the morning commute through the midday into the afternoon on Friday. So could be a wetter day here Friday as we go with 87 tomorrow. Again, just an outside chance of a shower or storm in the afternoon. There's that next weather maker on Friday, so umbrellas out. Back to 85 to 90 over the weekend, Saturday, Sunday. Humidity not bad, but it does get a little more blazingly hot into early next week.
Well, the national police shortage is forcing departments to find officers in new ways. The growing concern over law enforcement agencies changing their standards. Tens of thousands of dollars for taxpayer-funded trips. The concerns the city is overspending and being careless with your money. And the vice president says there will be no discussion. The latest on the controversy surrounding Florida's new guidelines on teaching students about slavery. Taking a look now at the Fox 45 quad box, Vice President Harris says she will not debate Florida's new Black history standards with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. The vice president says statements in the curriculum implying slavery was in some way beneficial for Black people are unacceptable. DeSantis says there is nothing wrong with the plan. Approval of the U.S. Supreme Court is at a record low. A Gallup poll saying only 40% of Americans approve of the court. The poll was conducted in July, just after the justices made decisions on affirmative action, student loan forgiveness, and voting rights. Illegal crossings at the U.S. southern border jumped more than 30%. Last month, agents made more than 130,000 arrests in July, up from roughly 99,000 in June. The charges against Rust armorer Hannah Gutierrez Reed will stand. Gutierrez Reed's lawyers asked the voluntary manslaughter and evidence tampering charges against her be dropped. The judge dismissed the defense team's arguments and their concerns over a potential tainted jury due to news coverage. Well, two of the city's top law enforcement officials promising a team effort to crack down on guns, the impact a community member believes it's having on the crime crisis. Tens of thousands of dollars for city leaders to travel. Why some say the money being put aside for government trips would be better spent elsewhere.
In a city in crisis, the Baltimore City Board of Estimates has approved more than $80,000 in travel expenses on the taxpayer's dime.
Alexa Ashwell here with a breakdown on who is being funded to go where and why one taxpayer watchdog is calling it excessive. Alexa.
Yes, Kai, Mary, members of the Board of Estimates met this morning and approved thousands of dollars in travel requests. In just 2 weeks, 17 city employees will travel to Ocean City, Maryland for the Maryland Association of Counties Conference. This includes 5 Baltimore City Council members, including Council President Nick Mosby, as well as Comptroller Bill Henry and 8 staffers under the mayor's office. The total bill, more than $28,000. That 4-day trip, Council President has the most with more than $2,300. Taxpayer protection watchdog David Williams says there needs to be a clear justification for this kind of spending.
You have infrastructure that needs to be addressed. You have water problems. You have public safety problems. These are things that need to be addressed. And while this money is not going to solve the city's financial problems, it's symbolic, and it shows that Baltimore city officials don't know how to spend money. They don't know how to prioritize.
Comptroller Henry and Council President Mosby abstained from voting on this trip to Ocean City.
And Alexa, what other travel expenses were approved today?
Well, Mary, the board also approved nearly $5,000 worth in sending 2 people to the National Association of Black Journalists Conference in Alabama. That 5-day event started today. Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
Well, the spending comes as the Baltimore Police Department is facing an historic staffing shortage. Early this year, officials reported the department was more than 500 officers short of where it wanted to be, and local police union leaders said they feared it was worse. The shortages leading to the department paying hefty overtime fees to the officers still on the job. all while there are fewer patrols to keep Baltimore safe.
And as city leaders struggle to come up with a solution to fill those vacancies, similar staffing shortages are becoming an issue for police departments nationwide. National correspondent Angela Brown has the latest.
We are counting at least 3 states that allow non-citizens to become police officers. The latest state to jump on board is Illinois. I spoke with a former Illinois police officer who says there will be legal challenges and is warning about background checks. Here's House Bill 3751. It says an individual who is not a citizen but is legally authorized to work in the United States under federal law is authorized to apply for the position of police officer. We talked to a spokesperson for the National Police Association about non-Americans arresting Americans on American soil.
Understand one of the big problems with this, if you hire somebody to be a police officer who just has a work permit, who came across illegally, you can't do an extensive background check on them. People who are here under DACA, that came as little kids or were born here to illegal parents, you can check their background.
Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker is pushing back against critics who are claiming the bill would allow people who enter the country illegally to become police officers. The governor telling local media in Illinois the law is for those who are legally allowed to work in the country and in Illinois. California and Colorado have passed similar laws allowing non-citizens who are authorized to work in the U.S. to become police officers, while other states like New Jersey are considering measures. States are making this move because many Americans do not want to be police officers. The Marshall Project says the number of law enforcement employees have decreased by 4%, according to the latest data. In Washington, D.C., I'm Angela Brown.
A shooting takes place in South Baltimore early this morning. Police say around 1:30 they responded to Pennington Avenue near Church Street. A 29-year-old was shot. Anyone with information should call city police. 396 people have been shot and survived in Baltimore this year. 160 people have been killed. Those numbers are down from this time last year, and there are growing concerns over youth violence and progress on getting illegal guns off the street.
Gun prosecution really is the centerpiece of our violent crime strategy.
We're making sure that if we have now realized that you're one of these violent trigger pullers in the city, we're focused on you together as a team.
City State's Attorney Ivan Bates and U.S. Attorney Eric Barron say they're working together as a team to crack down on violent offenders, illegal guns, and more. Patrice Sanders spoke with a community member about the progress.
The partnership between City State's Attorney Ivan Bates and Maryland's U.S. Attorney Eric Barron is drawing attention. Some have dubbed them the dynamic duo as they work together to keep guns and violent offenders off the streets of Baltimore. Their focus is violent criminals with guns. The two offices comb through cases daily, looking for ways to go after the guns, the drugs, the money, any charges they can use that will get criminals off the streets. Longtime Baltimore resident Pastor P.M. Smith had this to say.
But this guy, Mr. Eric Barron, he's the real deal. I like him. He's a man of his word. He's a man who must be taken seriously. And I think he's a different kind of Democrat. He put the resources, $3.5 million into Baltimore City. He put together an organized crime task force. He added 30 prosecutors. He's taking the guns off the street. And I like his idea of an Al Capone method, which means if you got guns, you're going to jail. If you do drugs, you're going to jail. But we're going to catch you with fraud, and we're going to catch you with tax evasion. That's smart. I like that.
And between the two offices, they say that within the past few days, 8 defendants have pleaded guilty or were sentenced to gun crimes. So they say what they're doing is working.
I believe it's working. Compared to last year, there are 58 less homicides. The mayor doesn't get credit for that. The commissioner doesn't get credit for that. Mr. Bates and Mr. Barron get credit for that, in my opinion. I like it.
Well, Pastor Smith says he also likes that both Bates and Barron were past prosecutors. Both have done defense work, which he says helps them understand the criminal element and how to deal with it. Patrice Sanders, Fox 45 News.
Meantime, Ivan Bates is speaking out against a controversial decision from Judge Melissa Finn. She decided to drop murder charges against a suspect when a prosecutor called out sick earlier this week. Bates says the decision is unacceptable for the family of the victim in this case.
I don't like to speak negatively of other judges. They have a very difficult job as well. However, we have to remember people are people. People get sick. And asking for a one-day delay of going after an individual that's accused of a violent murder in our city, we don't feel it's violating anybody's rights. But it's something that you do because it's fair. This isn't about me or my office. This is about the victim and the victim's family. I think too often in the criminal justice system, we forget about the victims. We forget about that family. And what we're saying to the court and everybody, let's have some civility. Let's treat people the way you'd want to be treated. If that was your loved one, would you want a judge to dismiss that case for a one-day continuance? The answer is no.
Judge Finn's decisions in the courtroom have been controversial at times in high-profile cases. She accepted a plea deal from Marilyn Mosby's office that released convicted arsonist Luther Trent. Trent served less than 6 months in prison after he admitted to trying to burn down his ex-girlfriend's house with her and her roommates inside. Finn eventually overturned that plea deal. Federal prosecutors went on to sentence Trent to 12 years in prison. Last June, police say Austin Davidson killed a Wycomico County Sheriff's deputy. In 2019, he faced 20 years for armed robbery, but Judge Finn sentenced him to probation before judgment, setting him free. Days after that case, Fox 45 News learned Joseph Black, the man accused of hitting and dragging a police officer with his car, was also out on a plea deal from Finn's courtroom.
Well, a man is arrested after being accused of stealing bombs in Washington County. Investigators say 48-year-old Stephen Thompson was taken into custody after his estranged wife reported finding strange devices in their home. A bomb squad responded and confirmed they were blast caps, explosives that are frequently used in construction and mining. Police say Thompson stole them from his workplace. He's facing multiple charges. Well, making headlines now, a jury in Pittsburgh has sentenced Tree of Life synagogue shooter Robert Bowers to death. Wednesday's unanimous decision follows about 10 hours of deliberations over 2 days. The verdict indicates jurors don't buy the defense's argument that Bowers has schizophrenia or delusional beliefs. Their finding is he knew what he was doing was wrong and had the capacity to stop himself. This is the first federal death penalty sentence under the Biden administration.
Well, new information about what the debate field could look like during the primaries, how the GOP is planning on cutting the number of candidates who are running. One senator is holding up hundreds of military appointments. The issues national defense officials say the protest is causing.
And with the continuation of this beautiful weather, if you want to fit in some lawn mowing when you head on home from work, all systems go. Temperatures 80s and 70s, a few clouds, but I'm going to let you know when showers and storms come back, as well as heat and humidity in 90s. It's all in my Weather Authority forecast.
New information on the upcoming Republican primary debates. The first GOP debate is 3 weeks away, and it may be harder for candidates to qualify for the one in September. At least 7 candidates have qualified for the first debate by polling at least 1% and getting 40,000 unique donors. The second debate will require candidates to be polling at least 3% with at least 50,000 unique donors, according to Politico. It's still unclear if former President Trump will participate in the debates. He said he doesn't believe that he should have to compete with the other candidates in the primary. This week, he also said he may use the debates to decide who he wants to pick as his vice presidential candidate. Trump is currently leading primary polling with around 45% of the vote. Pentagon officials say a congressional hold on military appointments is causing issues for national security. There are more than 300 open positions because of protests from Senator Tommy Tuberville. Right now, troops and dependents can take time off and ask for travel reimbursement to go out of state for reproductive health care, including abortions. Tuberville says he won't stop his hold unless the Senate allows a vote on the policy. The Pentagon says that the hold-ups, put friction in the system.
That impacts our ability to conduct our mission in the sense of it introduces uncertainty into the chain of command at a time when we need to be focused on our mission, which is, again, defending this nation.
The Pentagon says that move could stall more than 650 nominations by the end of the year. Well, Fitch Ratings downgraded its U.S. credit rating over concerns with the country's debt. The decrease was in response to the near debt default earlier this year and what the agency calls a steady deterioration of standards for decades. Over time, a lower credit rating could raise borrowing costs for the U.S. government. One of the longest heat streaks in the country has finally ended, but it's still quite hot in the central United States. 50 million people are under heat alerts from the southern plains to the lower Mississippi River Valley. North Texas could see temperatures up to 111 degrees, and cities in Louisiana could see 115-degree temperatures.
Yeah, not just Phoenix, but also places like Dallas all the way down to New Orleans experiencing triple-digit heat and prolonged, week and a half, 2 weeks, 3 week stretches of this stuff. So it is getting dangerous. Now, around here, we're on the very outer periphery of all that heat. We got a little piece of it last week, but thankfully it's kind of moved back down south and west away from us. But around the edges, there are some disturbances that give us some showers. And that means for tomorrow, we're going to get in on the potential of a couple of showers, maybe even some showers and thunderstorms for Friday. Humidity is going to be coming up. And yes, some more typical summertime heat going to be returning, unlike what we're seeing today. Only 80 right now. I love this. Mostly cloudy skies. Open those windows, enjoy. Toyota East Harbor Skycam folks on the Dragon boats enjoying some of this very nice, pleasant, unseasonably so August weather. Winds out of the east-northeast at 13, keeping us naturally air-conditioned with our humidity at 41%, dew points in the 50s. And yes, the dew point's the star of the show today. That's our measure of moisture in the air. A lot of folks may not quite understand what it means, but really what it does is it dictates a comfort factor. The lower it is, the better it feels. So the less moisture in the air, the more pleasant it is. And that's today. Now, by the time we get into tomorrow, all the way through the weekend, early next week, we're back in the thick of things again with the moisture and the stickiness. But for now, we're going to enjoy it. HT radar showing some showers, some storms from Chicago all the way back down to St. Louis into southern Canada, northern Michigan. That is our next weather maker. Nice weather ahead of it. But this will be getting here again around that big dome of heat down to our south and west as we head into, I think, tomorrow. At least a spot chance of a shower, maybe a rumble, but the better risk of some showers and storms arrives for Friday. You see all of that green on the map. And we're going to go ahead, hammer down close up on the state of Maryland. Let's take a look at the future scan overnight into early tomorrow morning. Temperature is going to be nice and comfortable. In fact, back down into the mid 60s. I'm going to go with about 64 or so for a low over the airport. And then by tomorrow afternoon, we're seeing the clouds thicken up. There are some of the showers, maybe a rumble. I don't think there's a ton tomorrow. There could still be a couple of showers left over for tomorrow night. This computer model is actually putting in some rain during the morning on Friday. I really think it's more relegated during the midday and the afternoon Friday. So keep that in mind for any getaways Friday afternoon, Friday evening. I know a lot of folks for the weekend heading down the ocean or heading to the bay. So keep that in mind there. You may have to incorporate some rain into the travel. 87 degrees, couple of spots, showers for Thursday, especially later in the day. Some showers, some thunderstorms on Friday. Only 81 for a high, but it's going to be muggier. The mugginess kind of cuts down a little bit over the weekend, although the temperatures come up. So Saturday, Sunday, partial sun, good for the pool or the beach, 88 degrees both days, and then we're hot and humid early next week with highs close to 90.
This summer, Sinclair Broadcast Group is partnering with the National Diaper Bank for Sinclair Care Summer Diaper Drive. Scan the QR code to help local diaper banks provide diapers to children and families in need. Donate today for a healthier future. If your family is struggling with basic needs for your baby, go to sinclaircares.com. Coming up at 5 o'clock, more questions about a shortage of police officers. We look at how the department is spending your tax dollars. Back to school shopping can be expensive for kids heading to college. We'll have tips to save you money. Whether you're a college freshman about to be away from home for the first time or a senior living off campus, back-to-school shopping can be expensive. Tom Rogers looks at ways to tackle that shopping list.
Adriana Yanez is gearing up to go back to school in a shared dorm this month.
My favorite parts about living on my own at school, half of it is the freedom, but the other half is just experiencing new things, just kind of getting that taste of being by myself.
But with that freedom comes a lot of responsibility. Consumer Reports says you can start by making sure you have the right items for your living space.
One of the biggest challenges of college life is adapting to a shared space, and that could mean sharing a bathroom, sharing a living room. And when it comes to living in these type of arrangements, staying organized is key.
Make your shared bathroom experience a breeze with a shower caddy. This Made Smart soft grip tote is just above $10 at Target. It comes with ventilation holes. They help promote airflow to help minimize the funky shower smell that comes with soap scum and mildew. Next, organize and decorate damage-free. This Command Variety Pack is just about $18 at Amazon, and you can use them to corral cords underneath a desk, hang towels from a door, or even hang bags and accessories. And getting a good night's sleep in college isn't always easy, but a good pillow can help. The Coop Sleep Goods Original Pillow is one of Consumer Reports' top-rated adjustable pillows, and a little more than $70 at Amazon and Coop Sleep Goods. Now to the desk, ideally one that's ergonomically sound. This Insignia ergonomic laptop stand is $30 at Best Buy. The stand can raise laptops about 10.5 inches above the desk. And finally, an item that you can use for your studies and having a good time with your friends. The JBL Clip 4 wireless and Bluetooth speaker. Cost about $80 at ABT Electronics and Amazon. An exciting time for Adriana as she is getting ready to go back to school this month while keeping her budget in mind.
My least favorite part about shopping for the new school year is the pricing of everything. I think that's my least favorite part, but other than that, I love it all.
And your student ID can also unlock savings on back-to-school gear like a new laptop or phone, as well as books, clothing, and video streaming services. Tom Rogers, Fox 45 News.
Also in Consumer Reports tonight, a light bulb ran 16 years in the making is finally in effect. The U.S. is now banning the sale of incandescent light bulbs. That rule was established in 2007, then rolled back by the Trump administration before finally being brought back by President Biden. Incandescent bulbs are less energy efficient than most light bulbs on the market. The rule is meant to reduce energy use, save consumers money on their utility bills, and cut down on carbon emissions. $1.25 billion is up for grabs in this Friday's Mega Millions drawing. That's because no one matched all 5 numbers, plus the Mega Ball in last night's drawing. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor joins us live from city headquarters with reaction from law enforcement experts and the police union themselves. Rebecca.
Mary and Kai, it is a sign that BPD's staffing shortages have gone from bad to worse. We're told initially BPD was trying to force officers to work these unwanted shifts. After intense backlash, though, from their rank and file, they're now offering bonuses to volunteers. However, the police union leadership says it's still not nearly enough to make up the additional burden being put on the officers. In the words of BPD's Deputy Chief of Patrols, desperate times call for desperate measures. That message and a memo obtained by Fox 45 revealing BPD offering officers bonuses to switch to understaffed shifts and districts. The report claims the imbalance between shifts due to redistricting. It says at least 10 patrol officers will need to move to the central and western districts. Officers who volunteer will receive $5,000. Additionally, 60 officers will also need to move from the day shift to the night shift. Those volunteers will receive $2,000. In total, the payout potentially costing taxpayers $170,000. And if not enough officers agree to switch shifts, they'll be forced to make the move to be worked in 28-day rotations.
The commissioner is recognizing that these are difficult times.
According to former FBI agent and legal expert Tyrone Powers, it's a sign Acting Commissioner Worley knows BPD's staffing crisis, which sits at more than 500 officers short, is reaching rock bottom.
We still have a crime issue. We have a homicide issue. We have a juvenile crime issue. And so he's having to be innovative and creative and also to make expenditures.
Speaking on behalf of BPD's rank and file police union leadership, sending a statement to Fox 45, reading in part, quote, "They are at a breaking point. Large pay increases and retention bonuses need to happen immediately or we will lose more of them."
I think it's a logical idea to pay officers more. You would be paying that anyway if you had the number of officers that you needed on the police force.
Fox 45 asking BPD if it's an option they're considering, but so far, no response. Meanwhile, BPD's Deputy Chief of Patrols also sending this message to detectives, informing them due to critical staffing needs, detectives will backfill patrols during their normal duty hours, meaning important investigations, including the efforts into the Brooklyn Homes mass shooting, will have less detectives searching for suspects.
What we'll do continuously is that we have the best homicide and shooting detectives in the world.
At a press conference with Mayor Brandon Scott, Fox 45 pressing for answers. Just how many detectives are working this case?
You know I'm not going to give that information.
BPD is currently pulling detectives to work patrols because staffing shortages are so severe. Could that be impacting this investigation?
No.
How could that not be impacting this investigation if there's a lack of detectives?
Because it's not. Homicide detectives are working this case and they're going to work it.
Well, Rebecca, let's talk about that. The high-profile case, Brooklyn Homes mass shooting. The mayor not saying much about it.
No, he didn't say much about it at all. And in fact, we pressed for a progress update on how that investigation is going. However, he says we will not be getting any updates on that investigation until an arrest is officially made. Take a listen to what he had to say.
I'm in Baltimore and I'm not going to talk about how close we are and who we're coming after out in the public. You'll know when we put the bracelets on them and we tell them.
30 people were shot, though, and a month has gone by. Does the public have no right to know why no arrests have been made in this case yet?
I think the public knows and Baltimore knows Baltimore very well. We've already made one arrest, so let's not give out incorrect information.
No one has been arrested for the shooting, though.
So what we'll do continuously is that we have the best homicide and shooting detectives in the world.
Now, the arrest that the mayor is referencing is of a teen who allegedly was seen carrying a gun during the time of the incident. However, his lawyer says that it was a toy gun. Again, to be clear, though, that teen and no other suspects have actually been arrested for the shooting itself. Reporting live from BPD headquarters, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Thank you, Rebecca. Fox 45 News is pressing for answers from the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement and Catholic Charities about Safe Street's response to the shooting.
That's right. Safe Street's workers were at the Brooklyn Day block party and mediated a few conflicts, but we still don't know why Safe Street's left without telling police about potential threats.
Fox 45 News has sent questions to Monzi and Catholic Charities, which run these Safe Streets locations. We asked what a mediation entails, who oversees the documentation of conflicts, and what protocols are in place to ensure better communication among agencies about a potential threat. Well, Fox 45 News also asked to see the blank form Safe Streets uses to review mediations. The mayor won't turn it over, saying the program's operations have to remain private. So we asked the mayor's office what information about that document is privileged. The mayor also won't answer questions about who Safe Streets employees are, saying they're not city employees and their identities have to be protected.
Auto theft used to be one of those crimes that if you got caught stealing a car, you went to prison. Now the criminals know that they're going to have to get arrested 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 40, 100 times for auto theft before they will ever see the inside of a prison.
New data from Baltimore police shows car thefts in the city are continuing. In fact, 424 cars were stolen in Baltimore over the last week. But with cars being taken at this rate, what strain is that putting on police resources in a city that's also dealing with violent crime and a shortage of officers? Fox 45's Amy Simpson joins us live as she investigates this story. Amy?
Kai, having your car stolen must be pretty terrifying, and what an inconvenience, right? But it's not a crime of violence, and I'm told it's a case that's tough to close and sometimes put on the back burner. In Baltimore City, cars are being stolen at a staggering rate. Last week, BPD reports 424 auto thefts citywide. In the last month, nearly 1,500 auto thefts. And so far this year, more than 5,500 auto thefts in Baltimore City, a 201% increase from the same 7 months last year.
I mean, that's such an extraordinary number.
Sergeant Betsy Smith with the National Police Association tells Fox 45 News this elevated rate of car thefts is happening in big cities nationwide. But in Baltimore, she points to a department that needs more officers. And the officers that are on the job are likely being pulled to more pressing problems.
So their detectives in Baltimore are short-staffed. Now, you take your remaining detective cadre, what are your priorities? Homicide, violent crime, sexual assault, things like that. Again, where does auto theft fall? It's felony, but it's on the lower end of felonies.
BPD actually found itself the victim of a car theft last Tuesday night, an unmarked Kia Optima, taken by a thief a few blocks from police headquarters.
We've had a departmental car that's been stolen with police equipment in it.
But with more than 5,500 cars stolen this year to date, Baltimore police report just 94 arrests for auto theft. And this law enforcement expert questions how investigators are supposed to keep up with the pace.
Well, let's say you have an auto theft detective who has 150 open cases. How many of those cases is that investigator going to be able to solve? Those investigators who have this huge caseload and are only able to close a small number of cases, it's incredibly frustrating to them.
And until more cases are investigated, see the inside of a courtroom and face penalties. Smith says cars will continue to go missing.
I really don't see this trend slowing down at all. We are going to have to go back to a system where we punish criminals.
Well, 4 times over the last week, I've asked the Baltimore Police Department how many of these auto theft investigations have been closed or resolved so far in 2023. But so far, that information has not been provided. We're live in Baltimore tonight. Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
The attack on our nation's capital on January 6th, 2021 was an unprecedented assault on the seat of American democracy.
Continuing coverage tonight, former President Donald Trump has been hit with another federal indictment, this time for its efforts to overturn the 2020 election. Special counsel Jack Smith framing the indictment around the events of January 6th, when supporters of then-President Trump stormed the Capitol.
But Trump wasn't actually charged with inciting the attack, as some had anticipated. Instead, he faces 4 counts related to his efforts to overturn the election, which include conspiracy to defraud the U.S., obstruct an official proceeding, and violate voting rights.
Trump reacting on social media, writing, "Why didn't they bring this ridiculous case 2.5 years ago? They wanted it right in the middle of my campaign. That's why." But prosecutors say former President Trump encouraged the mob and raised money on false claims of widespread voter fraud.
You'll never take back our country with weakness.
They don't have the smoking gun. I think the election was fair. People told him the election was fair, but they have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that in his own mind, he actually knew the election was fair and that he corruptly then tried to undo the election.
Trump already faces charges in New York for alleged hush payments, and he's been indicted in Florida for taking classified documents after he left the White House. He is now expected to appear in federal court in Washington, D.C. tomorrow to face these latest charges.
Republicans are split on their reaction to former President Trump's new indictment.
National correspondent Kayla Gaskins has details for us.
Donald Trump's third indictment doing little to rattle public support from much of the GOP.
We're learning in America the greatest crime you can have is to be a Republican.
Staunch allies on Capitol Hill standing firm in support. Marjorie Taylor Greene writing, "I will still vote for Trump even if he's in jail." The indictment sparking different reactions from those taking on Trump in the 2024 GOP presidential primary. Former Vice President Mike Pence supporting the charges.
On that day, President Trump asked me to put him over the Constitution, but I chose the Constitution.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis using the opportunity to rail against the weaponization of the federal government.
We need to put all this stuff behind us by fixing the government, by reconstitutionalizing it, and not have all this unnecessary stuff swirling around dividing our country all the time.
DeSantis stopping short of giving direct support of Trump personally. South Carolina Senator Tim Scott slamming what he calls two different tracks of justice, accusing Biden's DOJ of hunting Republicans while protecting Democrats. Scott also avoiding a direct mention of Trump. Vivek Ramaswamy appearing to give Trump the most support among the 2024 contenders.
This sets an awful precedent in our country. They're going full banana republic.
This indictment, Trump's third, isn't expected to hurt his standing among Republican voters. In fact, before Alvin Bragg brought the first charges against Trump in New York, he was polling at 45% among GOP primary voters. After the indictment, his numbers rose to 54%, giving him a leg up over challengers that has yet to waver.
Trump also faces a possible fourth indictment in the state of Georgia for efforts to overturn the 2020 election. In a poll from June, 61% of Republicans say these indictments don't affect how they view the former president. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins.
Still ahead, a major team up to combat the crime crisis in Baltimore. The prosecution being used and how critics feel about its effectiveness.
Plus, right after the break, Ravens camp continues. Morgan Atzett will join us live from Owings Mills with all the highlights.
And here at Fox 45, we are your back-to-school headquarters, and some counties have as little as 26 days to go until school begins, others at about 34 days across the state. Either way, we got more summertime heat in the forecast. I'm going to let you know when it gets here and how it could impact your weekend plans in my Weather Authority forecast.
Hey everyone, welcome to Sports Unlimited. I'm Morgan Atzett live in Owings Mills, where the Ravens just wrapped up a training camp practice a little bit after 4 today, and they ditched the pads. Well-deserved after back-to-back days in them, and this was the longest practice of training camp, 2.5 hours. The rest of the week is going to be just like this. Now, as far as on the field today, the Ravens were without wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr., but that was just a vet rest day for him. John Harbaugh confirmed that with me after practice, so no big deal there. Still no running back J.K. Dobbins. He's on the physically unable to perform list. Harbaugh doesn't have much of a concern on that right now, but acknowledged it will reach that point eventually. QB1, never a day off for Lamar Jackson. The offense looked good today and continues to improve each week. It's only natural for learning and installing a new offense. And while most of the attention on that falls with new offensive coordinator Todd Monken and Jackson, it really starts up front with the offensive line, a unit returning all but one starter that so far has set the pace well in Monken's system.
I think the offensive line is looking really good. Pass protection's been firm. You watch one-on-one pass protection. They win a lot over there. I feel like the footwork and the timing and the run game, we got 2 days, last 2 days, yesterday and the day before, of good run blocking, which you really have to have. We don't probably get enough of it, but they look good doing it. We have a lot of work to do, but probably the toughest area to get synchronized.
The Ravens do have an injury to keep your eye on from today's practice due to secondary depth and veteran experience being kind of an issue right now. Cornerback Rock Yassin left early during individual matchup drills going up against receivers. Appears to be a leg injury. He did leave on his own power. John Harbaugh said after practice doesn't appear to be anything serious, but they will continue to monitor it, of course. Reporting live in Owings Mills for Ravens training camp, I'm Morgan Atzett for Sports Unlimited.
All right, Morgan enjoying some nice weather out there in Owings Mills. And as we head into tomorrow, yes, we're going to start seeing this beautiful pattern fall apart a little bit. Tracking some Thursday showers with the next weather maker. An unsettled Friday is likely with some on and off showers, and especially during the afternoon could have some showers and thunderstorms. Humidity is going to be coming up with that next system moving in, and then more typical summertime heat heading into the weekend. So pool plans, I think it'll be okay. 81 degrees, mostly cloudy right now. Notice some of the haze, some of that Canadian wildfire smoke still in the mix. Some of those fires are now getting under control, but at least upstairs in the atmosphere, we're still seeing some of the particulates not impacting breathing quality conditions, though, so that's good. Mile 1 Tasicam also showing some of the traffic on York Road. It's moving by with no weather problems. Winds out of the east-southeast at 8 miles now right now. Humidity is at 39%, so that's fairly dry, which means that the feels-like temperature also is at 81 degrees. Now, over the next few days, dew point is kind of in the spotlight, and dew point's a measure of moisture in the air. It very easily kind of dictates a comfort factor. The less that level of moisture in the air, well, the better it feels. 55 the dew point today, so that's really nice, pleasant. But for tomorrow, begins to come up a little bit, so a touch sticky with a chance of a shower or thunderstorm in the afternoon, but it really doesn't get going until Friday. There you go, getting closer to that miserable zone, although temperatures are only going to be in the low 80s, and it stays a little bit humid over the weekend as high temperatures begin to soar to around 90. HD radar showing the beginnings of our next weather maker. Most of the showers and thunderstorms located over the western U.S., but over the Midwest, there are some spot showers and storms. This around the big heat that's been kind of sitting perched over Texas, the Arkansas, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi. Temperatures around 100 degrees. And around the edges of that, we've seen some disturbances. And one of those is going to be heading our way for tomorrow into Friday. Again, a spot chance of a shower or storm later on tomorrow, and a better risk of some on and off scattered showers, maybe a thunderstorm for Friday. So let's plan things out on the future scan overnight tonight into early tomorrow morning. Looking quiet. Temperatures in the 60s by tomorrow midday and afternoon. Clouds thickening, and there are some of those isolated showers and thunderstorms potentially kind of wafting mainly north and west on this computer model. But we could get at least a little spike of some of that tomorrow late in the day, and then a little better risk of some on and off showers and maybe a thunderstorm in the afternoon on Friday. So for tonight, 64, another nice night. Open the windows, 86 tomorrow. That PM rain risk, a few spot storms, a better risk, I think, on Friday. A little less humid over the weekend, but it turns hotter near 90, and it stays around 90 all the way into early next week.
Jonathan, thank you. Well, coming up after the break, competing GOP candidates speaking out about Donald Trump's most recent indictment, what Mike Pence is saying about the January 6th riots. Continuing coverage right now, the judge likely to preside over former President Trump's criminal case has spoken out in the past about attempts to overturn the 2020 election. Judge Tanya Chutkan is no stranger to lawsuits regarding the January 6th riot. She rejected Trump's attempt in 2021 to block the House Select Committee investigating the riot from getting White House records from that time. This could complicate one of special counsel Jack Smith's main goals in the indictment.
In this case, my office will seek a speedy trial so that our evidence can be tested in court and judged by a jury of citizens.
Well, the Judge Chutkan has served as a federal judge since being appointed by former President Obama in 2014 and then later confirmed by the Senate 95-0. Mike Pence issues what may be his most direct criticism of his former boss, saying that on January 6th, President Trump asked Pence to put himself over the Constitution.
Anyone who puts themselves over the Constitution should never be president of the United States. And anyone who asks someone else to put themselves over the Constitution should never be president of the United States again. Sadly, the president was surrounded by a group of crackpot lawyers that kept telling him what his itching ears wanted to hear.
Pence maintains he had no right to overturn the election that day, and all of Trump's stolen election claims are, quote, completely false. He adds that it should have come to a federal indictment and that Trump deserves to be presumed innocent until proven guilty. Pence also says he thinks the government has been weaponized to some degree, and he has some concerns about election integrity. Well, as the crime crisis continues, we're looking into the role juveniles are playing, how laws on the books could be having an impact. Some city leaders getting funding to take a trip to Ocean City, the reason behind the trip, and how much taxpayer money has been approved. Plus, students will be heading back to the classroom later this month. What parents need to know about separation anxiety for kids who are just starting school this year.
Fox 45 News is following two big stories for you at 5:30.
The Board of Estimates approves $80,000 for a conference trip to Ocean City, who's being funded to go with your taxpayer dollars.
But first, across Maryland, top prosecutors are calling for juveniles to be held accountable. Many say their hands are tied because of action taken by the General Assembly.
And we have team coverage of our top stories, starting with the juvenile crime crisis. Maxine Stryker has continuing coverage.
Tuesday night, 8 juveniles from Baltimore City are accused of committing crime in Anne Arundel County. Police say 3 juvenile females were arrested for an attempted carjacking, assaulting the victim before stealing her keys. 3 juvenile males were also arrested for car theft. Police say 2 more suspects were involved, but not charged due to their age.
They know that, nothing's really going to happen to them if they keep their crime in a certain limit of types of crimes.
The Juvenile Justice Reform Act limits those under 13 to charges for crimes of violence and says a juvenile under 10 cannot be charged. The law also calls for 6 months probation for juveniles who commit adult misdemeanors and 1 year probation for juveniles who commit adult felonies.
I am concerned that in some instances the legislature got involved in redrafting fundamental principles of constitutional law.
Their limitations, 9 states attorneys across Maryland, including Montgomery County State's Attorney John McCarthy, tell us are making their jobs harder when it comes to holding young people accountable. McCarthy would like to see a list of things changed, including the complete prohibition on charging those 13 and under, the prohibition on detaining a juvenile for technical probation violations, capping probation at 6 months, and a prohibition on detaining a juvenile for misdemeanors.
They come in, we can't detain them, they're back in the community the next day. They get picked up for the second one, can't detain them. They're back in the community again the next day. They pick up a third, they're back in the community again the next day. That is frustrating to the community and frustrating to us because without the detention, we are, in many instances, we're really not getting the attention of the child.
As 2 Maryland legislative committees plan to look into accusations juvenile justice reform laws are contributing to the problem, we asked Mayor Brandon Scott if he thinks the laws need to change.
This system has to be built brand new because we know the old system, the adult system, doesn't work for young people, and we know what we have today doesn't work as well. We need to Maryland needs to lead in building a system that actually works and has that balance of accountability for one's actions and understanding how, especially before they get too far gone in the life, that we're actually able to correct young people's behavior and benefit them and their families.
Critics say action needs to be taken sooner rather than later, and talk must translate to results.
I think a lot of this hearing is designed to placate the public. It's going to give people the political security to say, look, I take this seriously, I want something done. But it's not going to create action as far as concrete legislative program because you still have to get some sort of program through the legislature, and then the governor has to sign off on it.
Maxine Stryker, Fox 45 News.
And that brings us to our question of the day. Should juveniles who commit serious crimes be treated as adults in the judicial system? So far, 92% of those who voted say yes. Go to foxbaltimore.com/vote. Join that conversation.
Turning to a city in crisis, Baltimore is seeing another shooting early this morning. Police say around 1:30 they responded to a scene on Pennington Avenue near Church Street. Police say a 29-year-old was shot. 396 people have been shot and survived in the city this year. 160 people have been killed. Those numbers are down from this time last year, and there is also growing concern over the progress on getting illegal guns off the streets.
Gun prosecution really is the centerpiece of our violent crime strategy.
We're making sure that if we have now realized that you're one of these violent trigger pullers in the city, we're focused on you together as a team.
Well, City State's Attorney Ivan Bates and U.S. Attorney Eric Barron say they are working together as a team to crack down on violent offenders, illegal guns, and more. Longtime Baltimore resident Pastor P.M. Smith weighing in on this new partnership and what it could mean going forward.
But this guy, Mr. Eric Barron, he's the real deal. I like him. He's a man of his word. He's a man who must be taken seriously. And I think he's a different kind of Democrat. He put the resources, $3.5 million into Baltimore City. He put together an organized crime task force. He added 30 prosecutors. He's taken the guns off the street. And I like his idea of an Al Capone method, which means if you got guns, you're going to jail. If you do drugs, you're going to jail. But we're going to catch you with fraud, and we're going to catch you with tax evasion. That's smart. I like that.
The two offices say they go through cases daily looking for ways to get criminals off the streets.
Meantime, Ivan Bates is speaking out against a controversial decision from Judge Melissa Finn. She decided to drop murder charges against the suspect when one of Bates's prosecutors called out sick. Bates says the decision is unacceptable for the family of the victim.
I don't like to speak negatively of other judges. They have a very difficult job as well. However, we also have to remember people are people. People get sick. And asking for a one-day delay of going after an individual that's accused of a violent murder in our city, we don't feel it's violating anybody's rights. But it's something that you do because it's fair. This isn't about me or my office. This is about the victim and the victim's family. I think too often in the criminal justice system, we forget about the victims. We forget about that family. And what we're saying to the court and everybody, let's have some civility. Let's treat people the way you'd want to be treated. If that was your loved one, would you want a judge to dismiss that case for a one-day continuance? The answer is no.
Well, Judge Finn has a history of making controversial decisions in high-profile cases. These include the case of convicted arsonist Luther Trent, the man who tried to burn his ex-girlfriend's house down with her inside, the case of Austin Davidson, the man accused of killing a Wicomico County Sheriff's deputy, and the case of Joseph Black, the man accused of hitting and dragging a police officer with his car.
You can find more about each of these cases and Judge Finn's decisions on our website, foxbaltimore.com. Also in a city in crisis, the Baltimore City Board of Estimates has approved more than $80,000 in travel expenses on the taxpayer's dime. Alexa Ashwell is here with a breakdown on who's being funded to go where and why one taxpayer watchdog calls it excessive. Alexa?
Yes, Kai, members of the Board of Estimates met this morning and approved thousands of dollars in travel requests. In just 2 weeks, 17 city employees will travel to Ocean City, Maryland for the Maryland Association of Counties Conference. This includes 5 Baltimore City Council members, including Council President Nick Mosby, as well as Comptroller Bill Henry and 8 staffers with the mayor's office. The total bill, more than $28,000. For that 4-day trip, Council President Mosby requesting the most funds, more than $2,300. Taxpayer protection watchdog David Williams says there needs to be a clear justification for this kind of spending.
You have infrastructure that needs to be addressed. You have water problems. You have public safety problems. These are things that need to be addressed. And while this money is not going to solve the city's financial problems, it's symbolic, and it shows that Baltimore city officials don't know how to spend money. They don't know how to prioritize.
Comptroller Henry, Council President Mosby both abstained from voting on this trip to Ocean City.
And Alexa, what other travel expenses were involved or improved here?
Kai, several. The board also approved a nearly $5,000 request to send 2 people to the National Association of Black Journalists Conference in Alabama. That 5-day event started today. Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
Well, an update now to the accusations Harford County Executive Bob Casserly spied on Councilman Aaron Penman and other government officials and citizens. The council president saying the Office of the Maryland Special Prosecutor will now handle the investigation moving forward. Council President Patrick Vincenti made the announcement in a statement today, saying the special prosecutor will receive his full support and cooperation. A statement goes on to say the county council's communications with constituents and on legislative matters should remain confidential. He says he's actively reviewing the need for county council and other local agencies to have separate computer and phone plans. Now, it comes after County Executive Casserly admitted yesterday he did monitor communications between Penman and the Harford County Sheriff and several others. He says monitoring communications is allowed, and it was all done legally because the county's phone usage policy states all computer systems and files can be monitored at any time. Penman pushing back on that claim.
I do not work for the county executive. I work for the constituents of District B. It's a separate branch of government. I am not an employee of the county. Therefore, he is not privy to my emails and correspondence on cell phones.
Castle initially denied Penman's allegations of illegal wiretapping entirely, calling them malicious and slanderous. Well, Fox 45 News will continue to follow this developing story. We'll keep you updated both on air and online. You can find all of our past reporting on the back and forth on our website, foxbaltimore.com.
Let's take a look at stories trending across the state. Towson University welcomes a new president. Dr. Mark Ginsburg will become the university's 15th president. He currently serves as the executive vice president at George Mason University in Northern Virginia. He'll take on his new role starting October 30th.
Baltimore County has acquired ownership of the Parkville Armory from the state of Maryland following a vote from the Maryland Board of Public Works. It's an effort to support future redevelopments of this historic site. According to officials, the change in ownership will give more opportunities to provide more community services.
Middle River will gain some more pickleball courts. A group of investors is announcing 10 new courts at a new pickleball house at St. John Properties in Greenlee. They plan on opening the venue in early November.
More pickleball always.
That you're happy about, Mary, I know.
Yes, I'd love to hear that. The Baltimore Ravens announcing they will host their second annual Kids Night at M&T Bank Stadium. It'll happen next Saturday in the preseason opener against the Philadelphia Eagles. Kickoff is set for 7 p.m. and the first 15,000 kids under 16 will receive a specialty Ravens bucket hat.
That's right. Fox 45 News is your back-to-school headquarters.
It can be frightening, right? A frightening time for our youngest students when they go to school for the first time.
Fox 45's Megan Gillen explains why.
The countdown to school is on, and while that first day can be exciting, it can also bring a lot of anxiety, especially for those little ones who aren't used to being away from their parents. But no worries. Pediatric specialist Dr. Ashanti Wood says there is still time to get your kids ready. Is there anything we can do to try and calm those nerves, make them feel at home and okay?
Absolutely. And honestly, parents have these jitters as well. We were talking right before coming on that we both have young children. So first we want to try to do a trial run. And a trial run will be, this is before the first day of school, and we're going to let our child know exactly what it's going to look like, what the lay of the land looks like, what drop-off look like. Hey, this is where I drop you off at, and we're going to walk. Or if someone's going to actually come to the car and pick up your child and then walk them inside. But doing a trial run, when kids see what they're up against, sometimes that reduces some of their fears.
Dr. Woods went on to say validating your child's fears is another great way to help them feel more comfortable. Remember, Fox 45 News is your back-to-school headquarters. Now through the first day of school, we're going to be compiling all of the things that busy families need to know to prepare for a great school year ahead. Just click on that QR code on your screen, check out all of the stories we've posted so far, or go to foxbaltimore.com/back-to-school-HQ. I'm Megan Gillen, Fox 45 News.
The Ravens back on the field for training camp before their preseason opener against the Eagles next week. Morgan Atson and Rocco DeSangro will join us live from Owings Mills.
It is a first-of-its-kind depression drug that the FDA is considering could be approved as early as this week. I'm Liz Bonus. What makes it different and who it could help? That is just ahead.
And although we are tracking the next weather maker, still some nice weather to get through before we get there. Overnight tonight includes some of those pleasant readings down to the 60s once again by early tomorrow morning. But I'll let you know, and you'll have to close the windows, turn the AC on once again. That's coming up in my Weather Authority forecast.